My name's Emily, and this happened at St. Luke's Hospital in Phoenix. I was 22, recovering from second-degree burns after a kitchen accident. I thought the worst was over, until they brought him in. I still don't know what I saw that week, but I can tell you one thing. When I smell burnt flesh now, I can still hear him laughing. The burn unit always felt too quiet. Even the machines seemed to breathe slower in there. The low hum of ventilators, the rhythmic ticking of 4 drips, the air reeked of antiseptic and singed gauze. I'd been there for 4 days when they brought him in. It was close to midnight. The lights were dim, and I remember hearing the wheels of a stretcher squeaking down the hall. When they passed my room, I saw him completely wrapped in bandages, from head to toe, not a single patch of skin exposed. His breathing was wet, uneven, like each inhale hurt. 2 nurses whispered outside my door. 90% burns, one said. He shouldn't even be alive. I felt pity at first. He was just a shape under layers of gauze. But then, as they positioned his bed near mine, I noticed something strange. He never moved, not even when they inserted his the 4th. Not even when they spoke to him. He just lay there, breathing. Nights were the worst. The room was always too warm, too still. I started noticing his breathing, how it changed when the lights went out. During the day, it was steady, faint, but after midnight, it slowed and deepened. Sometimes, it stopped entirely. I'd lie there, frozen, counting the seconds. 1, 2, 3, and then, suddenly, that sound again. A harsh rasp, like melted plastic scraping against itself. Once, I couldn't help but whisper, "Are you okay?" No answer. Only the sound of the air conditioner clicking on. I tried to convince myself it was my imagination, the pain meds messing with me. But around 3 a.m., I woke again to that same ragged breath, this time closer. It was different, slower, drawn out. I held my breath, listening. And then I heard it, a soft, hoarse exhale. My heart monitor spiked so loud that a nurse rushed in. She checked my vitals, smiled faintly, and said, "You're fine, honey. Just a bad dream." But I knew what I heard. By the 4th night, I stopped trying to sleep. Every sound made me jump. The hum of fluorescent lights, the shuffle of nurses' shoes, the faint hiss from his oxygen line. That's when I noticed them. 3 people dressed in black came in after visiting hours. They didn't talk to anyone. They just walked straight to his bed and stood there. 1 at the head, 2 at the foot. Their voices were low, rhythmic, not English. It sounded like a chant. I pressed the call button, but no one came. The intercom clicked, then went silent. I could hear the whispers clearly now. A pattern, repeating words I couldn't understand. Something about it felt wrong, ancient. Finally, I tried calling out, "You can't be here. It's after hours." But they didn't even look at me. They just kept whispering, their hands moving slightly, like they were tracing invisible shapes over his body. After a few minutes, they left, silent, unhurried. I looked toward the nurse's station. No one had seen a thing. When I asked about visitors the next morning, the nurse frowned. "Visitors? No one's been in here, Emily." That's when I realized maybe they weren't visitors at all. I couldn't sleep that night. Every few minutes, I'd hear faint whispers. That same rhythmic pattern I'd heard from the visitors. It was coming from his bed. I told myself it was the machines, the air vents, anything but him. But then I realized the sound had shape, words. I reached for my phone and hit record, holding it just above the blanket. The whispers were low and guttural, almost like chanting. I couldn't make sense of them, but they seemed to pull at something deep in my chest. The man's bandaged head shifted slightly, and I swear I saw the gauze pulse, like something underneath was breathing on its own. When morning came, I replayed the audio. Nothing. Just static. No voices. No chanting. Later that night, I heard him again. Only this time, the words were clearer. He was repeating them himself. That same rhythm. the same dark tone the visitors had used. His rapt face trembled as he spoke, and I saw the bandages around his mouth stretch outward, as if something inside was trying to push through. I dropped the phone. He stopped speaking instantly. The silence afterward felt heavier than the words. By morning, his bed was empty, the sheets stripped, the monitors unplugged. I asked a nurse where he'd gone, but she just smiled politely. "Taken for treatment," she said. Hours passed. He didn't return. The bed stayed empty. That evening, I overheard two nurses talking near the supply closet. One whispered, "We don't have a record for that patient." The other just said, "Then don't ask questions." I couldn't eat. Couldn't even sit still. I told myself he'd been transferred, but something deep down knew better. That night, I woke to a sound. Slow, steady dripping. I turned my head. My floor bag was fine. The drip wasn't from mine. It was coming from the bed beside me. His bed. Clear fluid ran down the rail and onto the floor. I followed the drops with my eyes and froze. On the mattress, folded perfectly, were bandages. Damp, but neatly arranged, like someone had taken them off carefully and left them there for me to find. He was back the next morning. Just there, as if he'd never left. The nurses didn't react. They walked in and out of the room like everything was normal. No one said a word about the empty bed or the missing files. Something was different, though. The air felt heavy, humid. I could smell something sweet and metallic, like burnt sugar and blood. His bandages were darker now, spotted with black stains, oily and wet. I pressed the call button. The intercom clicked once. Static. Then, a whisper. The same foreign prayer I'd heard from the visitors. The same one he'd repeated. I stared at him. The stains on his bandages began to spread, seeping through the layers like ink through paper. "Nurse," I shouted. No answer. The whispering grew louder in the intercom. The words wrapped around me, coiling in my ears. And just before the static cut off completely, I heard something else. A laugh. Soft. Wet. Familiar. He was awake. That night, I woke to the steady beep of my heart monitor. Too fast. Too loud. The room was drenched in red light from the emergency sign above the door. Everything looked distorted, stretched in shadow. I could feel it. Someone was watching me. I turned my head slowly, afraid to make a sound. His bed was empty. The sheets hung loose, the tubes swaying slightly. For a moment, I thought he'd been taken again. Then my eyes adjusted. He was standing beside his bed, upright, perfectly still. His bandaged head tilted slightly toward me, the way a dog tilts its head at a sound it doesn't understand. The tubes that had been attached to his arms and chest dangled freely, dripping. He shouldn't have been able to stand. Not with those injuries, I whispered. "Help. Someone, please." But my voice cracked halfway through. No one came. He took one slow step forward. The floor creaked beneath him. Then, as suddenly as it started, the heart monitor flatlined. Not his. Mine. And in that dead silence, I heard a faint rustling beneath his bandages, like something crawling underneath. The smell hit first. Burnt flesh. Sweet. Thick. Suffocating. I wanted to scream, but my throat locked. The air shimmered, heat rolling off his body in waves. I could see faint flickers of orange glowing beneath the bandages, tiny sparks. Moving. He started to laugh, low at first, muffled by the wrappings, then louder, breaking into fits that sounded almost joyful. The flame spread unnaturally fast, crawling along his arms, his chest, his face. Defia didn't burned the bandages away. It burned from within them, like it was feeding on him. The intercom clicked on. That same guttural prayer filled the room, repeating, overlapping his laughter until I couldn't tell which was which. I yanked at my floor, trying to get out of bed. The heat was unbearable. Smoke filled my lungs. Through the blur, I saw him turn toward me, still laughing, as the fire swallowed him whole. When I woke, The room was white again. Sterile. Cold. There was no smoke. No smell. Just a nurse smiling too kindly, saying, "You're safe now, Emily." But the fire alarm had never gone off. No scorch marks. The bed beside mine was gone, replaced with an empty space and a clean floor. I asked, "What happened to the man in bandage?" She hesitated, then said, "There was no other patient here." A week later, I was discharged. They told me stress and medication could cause hallucinations. I wanted to believe them, but every night since, I wake to that same scent, faint, burnt flesh drifting through my room, the sound of a distant drip. And underneath it, something worse, a wet, bubbling laugh, growing closer. I'm Ryan, and this happened back in 2012 at Mercy General in Dallas. I was 17, but ended up in the pediatric ward because every other bed was full. I thought it would just be a week of boredom surrounded by cartoons and crying kids. But on my second night there, I realized I wasn't the only one sharing that room. And trust me, some lullabies never stopped playing. I was embarrassed from the start. 17 years old and stuck in a room meant for toddlers. My leg was in a cast from the knee down, and I could already hear cartoon jingles coming from the hallway. The walls were painted with fading jungle animals, giraffes, lions, and monkeys with chipped smiles. My roommate was a little girl, maybe 8, pale, quiet. She didn't say a word when I was wheeled in, just watched me from her bed, clutching a stuffed rabbit that looked like it had survived a war. On the nightstand beside her was an old porcelain music box. A tiny dancer twirled inside, her paint chipped and one arm missing. I asked if it was hers. The nurse said softly, "It belonged to the last patient here." When I asked what happened to her, she hesitated. "She didn't make it," the nurse said, "but the box stayed." I remember thinking that was messed up, but when the lights went out, I caught the girl still staring at it, like she was waiting for it to move. It must have been close to 3 a.m. when he woke up. The room was dark except for the soft blue glow from a cartoon nightlight on the wall. That's when I heard it faint music, slow and uneven. The music box. I turned my head. The little girl was sitting upright, eyes fixed on it. The dancer spun slowly, scraping with every turn. The tune was broken, like the spring was fighting to stay alive. "Hey," I whispered. "Did you wind it up?" She didn't look at me. "She did," she said. For a second, I didn't understand. "Who?" No answer. Just that same cracked melody filling the silence. I pulled the blanket over my head and told myself it had to be the draft. The box moving on its own somehow. But even under the blanket, I could feel the rhythm of that song echoing in my chest. It kept playing long after I fell back asleep. The next morning, I asked the night nurse about it. She was older, tired looking, with deep lines under her eyes. When I mentioned the music box, her hand froze mid-motion as she adjusted my floor. "Oh, that thing," she said quietly. "It's been here forever. Tell Asker's mother. Couldn't take it home after she passed." She forced a smile. "It's harmless. Just an old toy." "Then why does it start playing by itself?" "Primera, ask it." The nurse hesitated, eyes darting toward the girl's bed. "Loose mechanism. Maybe," she said, but her voice trembled. "Don't worry about it, sweetheart. These old wards have a way of holding on to things." I didn't like the way she said things. That night I caught the girl humming the same melody while she slept, every note slightly off, like she knew the song better than the box itself. And somewhere in the dark, I swear I heard a faint click, the dancer beginning another turn. I started noticing it on the 4th night. The same time, the lullaby began around 3 in the morning. A faint scent, like antiseptic, mixed with burnt cloth. It drifted in right as that warped melody started playing again. At first, I thought it was the cleaning crew, but the smell got stronger every night, hanging in the air even during the day. It clung to my sheets, to my gown, to the metal rail by my bed. The girl Emily stopped talking altogether. She just sat up at random hours, her eyes fixed on something across the room. I tried asking what she was looking at. She turned her head slowly, her face pale and distant. She doesn't like being forgotten. she whispered. That smell hit me harder right then. Thick, bitter. It filled my throat. I pressed the nurse call button, but nobody came. The melody stopped a few seconds later, just like someone had shut it off mid. That night, I woke up gasping. The melody was back, but different. Frantic. Spinning too fast. The dancer on top whirled like it was going to fly off. Emily's bed was empty, sheets tossed aside. My pulse spiked as I hit the call button, but the intercom answered with only static. Emily, I whispered. My voice barely made a sound. Then the door creaked open, slow, dragging. I saw movement near the floor, like tiny shadows crawling under the light. The music box screeched and stopped. Just silence. Then a nurse stepped in pale, shaking, eyes wet. She didn't look at me. She went straight for the music box, grabbed it, and shoved it into a metal cabinet. Locked it tight, she whispered. Don't ask about it, and walked out. The smell lingered long after she left. The next morning, Emily's bed was perfectly made, her bracelet still on the pillow. When I asked the nurse what happened, she said Emily had been discharged early, but her voice didn't sound convinced. No one saw her parents come, I said. She just stared at the floor. Later that day, I overheard two nurses talking by the supply cart. One said, "They found the cabinet locked again this morning. No one touched it." The other just said, "Then who put the key back?" That night, I couldn't sleep. The room felt colder. Every sound echoed too long. The antiseptic smell was so strong I had to pull my blanket over my nose. Right before I drifted off, I thought I heard something faint, a tiny metallic click from inside that cabinet. And then, a single broken note from the lullaby, played before cutting to silence. Title: The Music Box in Pediatrics Children's Wing, Mercy General Hospital, Dallas, Texas. That night I couldn't sleep. The air felt heavy, like the whole room was holding its breath. Around 3 a.m., the cabinet across from me started to shake softly at first, like someone was tapping from the inside. Then the sound came, the same uneven lullaby, muffled, like it was trapped behind the metal. I froze. Every note dragged slower than the last. The hinges creaked, vibrating, the entire cabinet trembling as if it were breathing. I whispered for the nurse, but my voice barely came out. And then, silence. For a few seconds, nothing moved. Then, from behind the door, I heard a child's voice humming. Quiet, calm, finishing the song exactly where the melody had stopped. The humming faded, leaving only the faint tick of the clock on the wall. And my heartbeat, loud in my ears. The next morning, the entire wing buzzed with whispers. The cabinet door was found open. The hinges twisted like they'd been forced from the inside. The music box lay shattered on the floor, porcelain dancer in pieces. I overheard two nurses near the hallway, their voices trembling. One said maintenance found fingerprints on the inside of the cabinet, tiny ones, like a child's. The other whispered, she just wanted her toy back. By evening, staff began moving us out for cleaning, but I saw the look in their eyes. They were scared. As I packed my things, I noticed something else. Vein marks scratched into the wall near my bed, letters unevenly carved. Play with me. A few weeks later, I was discharged. The doctors said the pediatric wing was being renovated, but everyone knew something had happened. Months passed before I heard from another patient online. He sent me a photo. A janitor had taken it before the wing was sealed. Same cabinet, same spot, but across the metal door, written in condensation, were the words again. Play with me. Sometimes, when I'm walking past toy stores or playgrounds, I hear it that same broken tune, faint but familiar. It always ends the same way, with that warped note that once woke me at 3 a.m., echoing inside my head like a memory that refuses to die. My name's Daniel, and I'm 43. This happened a few years ago, when I was hospitalized at St. Mary's in Portland for a lung infection. I was in isolation, no visitors, no roommates, just me, the hiss of oxygen, and the sound of my own breathing through the mask. I thought the nights were the worst part, until I realized someone else was walking that corridor every night. someone who wasn't supposed to be there. Isolation does something strange to your mind. The hum of the ventilator, the steady hiss of oxygen. It becomes the rhythm of your thoughts. There was a small window built into the door, just enough to see the hallway. Never the end of it. Nurses would slide in trays, check my vitals through the glass, give a thumbs up, and disappear again. After a few days, I stopped watching TV. I dehus listen the squeak of cartwheels, quiet footsteps, doors clicking shut one after another. Every sound felt louder in that silence, more deliberate, like the building itself was breathing. It was close to 2 in the morning when I woke up. At first, I thought it was part of a dream, the sound of shoes tapping slowly down the corridor. Sharp, steady, through the small window. I saw her, a woman in an old-fashioned nurse's uniform, white cap, pale blue apron, the kind you'd see in black and white photos. She moved from door to door, stopping at each one, just standing there, peering through the glass. When she reached my room, I froze. Her head tilted slightly, as if reading something on my face. Then she turned and kept walking. I told myself she must have been part of the night staff. But that uniform, it didn't look right. The next night, she came again. Same time, same sound of footsteps. 2:18 a.m. I checked the clock. She appeared at the far end of the corridor, moving slowly, her shoes tapping the tiles in rhythm with the heart monitor beside me. She never entered a room. She just stopped at each door. Watching. When she reached mine, I lifted my hand, wobbled lightly. But she didn't move, didn't react. Her head turned slightly, the corridor light reflecting off her eyes, like glass. I started waiting for her after that, not out of curiosity, out of dread. That moment when her shadow passed my window, It always came right on time. The next morning, I tried to bring it up casually. The nurse came in to check my 4, and while she adjusted the drip, I asked, "Hey, who's the lady who walks the hallway at night?" "The one in the old uniform." She froze for half a second, then laughed, like she hadn't heard me right. "Old uniform?" she said, still smiling. "No one wears those anymore. We've all got scrubs now." I explained what I'd seen. The cap, the apron, the way she checked each room. Her face shifted a little. Not quite smiling anymore. "You're probably dreaming, Mr. Harris. The meds can do that sometimes." She said it too fast. Too rehearsed. After she left, I stared at the glass window for a long time. I could still see the faint outline of where she'd stood the night before. My reflection looked pale, tired. And behind it, I thought I saw movement. Just a flicker, like someone walking past again, but it was only 10 a.m. That night, I decided to write everything down. I kept my phone's clock open, waiting for 2:18. The corridor lights hummed faintly, that sterile glow that made everything feel too still. And then there it was, the rhythm of shoes. Even, slow, deliberate. She appeared exactly on time. Same uniform, same posture. She paused at each door, but this time she lingered longer at mine. I could see her shape through the small square window, shoulders slightly hunched, head tilted as if she were listening. I raised my hand, waving. Nothing. No response. Just the faint shift of a chin, the glint of glass eyes catching the corridor light. My chest tightened. I wrote down every second, every pause. In the morning, I asked the night nurse if anyone had been doing rounds. She shook her head immediately. "We don't patrol isolation past midnight. To few staff." She smiled, but her eyes looked wary, like she already knew what I was going to say next. My final night before discharge. I didn't sleep. I watched the clock tick closer to 2:18. The corridor lights flickered once, twice, then and there she was again. She stopped at my door, but this time, she didn't move on. For nearly a minute, she stood still, hands clasped in front of her, head tilted slightly like she was studying me. My pulse climbed. I could finally see her face clearly now. Pale, smooth, expressionless. The eyes, they didn't blink. They looked wrong, like painted glass behind clear plastic. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. It felt like if I blinked, she'd come closer. Then, as the lights dimmed again for a split second, she was gone. Just gone. The hallway empty, but even with the door sealed, I could still feel her gaze pressing through the glass, like she hadn't left it all. I remember slamming my thumb against that red call button until the skin hurt. The intercom clicked, but no voice came through. The woman outside my window didn't react. She just stood there, that same faint tilt of her head, as if listening to the pulse of the oxygen machine. I whispered, "Please, just go." But the sound of my voice only seemed to hold her there longer. Then she turned her head slightly. Not toward me, but toward the sound of my breathing. It was like she could hear it through the mask. I froze, trying not to move. And then, just like that, she glided backward down the hallway, silent, never breaking eye contact. When the nurse finally entered, I could barely form words. She checked the monitor, looked at me strangely, and said the camera feed showed no one outside my room. I didn't argue. I just stared at the door, waiting for the footsteps that never came back that night. The next morning, I overheard 2 staff members whispering near the nurse's station. They mentioned the cameras had cut out again. Sam has before. I asked one of them what that meant, but she quickly changed the subject. Later, a respiratory technician came to check my oxygen levels. Maybe he saw how shaken I looked, because after a moment he leaned closer and said quietly, "You're in the old isolation wing, right?" When I nodded, he sighed. "You ever hear about the technician who died here back in the 80s? Oxygen tank rupture, whole corridor filled with gas. She was the only one on shift." I just stared at him. They said she was found halfway down that hallway, standing up, clipboard in hand, eyes open. He didn't have to say more. I knew exactly what he was describing. A few weeks later, I was finally discharged. I kept telling myself it was just exhaustion, side effects, or my mind trying to make sense of isolation. But months after that, when I returned for a checkup, I walked past the same floor. The doors to the isolation wing were sealed off. The lights inside were dim, flickering faintly. As I passed, I caught something through the small window, just a glimpse, white and pale blue, motionless at the end of the corridor. I froze, staring until my reflection was the only thing left in the glass. Then I heard it, slow, measured footsteps. 1, 2, then silence. When people ask if I believe in ghosts, I never know what to say. I just tell them this: she wasn't checking on who was asleep. She was counting who was still awake.